people use the phrase, or like to use the phrase of like finding yourself, being who you are. But this is so abstract, it feels, I know from my wanting to figure these kind of things out, it feels abstract. So we're going to talk about how the mind deals with this and how the mind interlaces with this. So we all woke up on a speck of dust floating in infinite space, and we became conscious. Well, when we got here, there were a lot of people here before, and they created all these structures around us, belief systems, meaning that they assign to things. And so we get here and we try to kind of navigate in finding what feels right for us to believe in, these kind of things. So we're not going to worry about what to believe in. We're going to look at how the mind works and, what's going on in the mind, and that how it relates to just being you rather than living inside of a safe space where you carved out a little niche of meaning from the meaning that was already given to you. So think of it. Let's think of the mind in different stages. So the first stage was when I had no idea that I could observe my thoughts. So it was in college when I was studying psychology and learned about metacognition, and it was metacognition. It was thinking about your thinking. I was like, that's weird, And then what I recognized from starting to pay attention to my thoughts was my thoughts were just in there, and I could observe them. And that got kind of weird because I was like, who's observing my thoughts? But there's another level that comes up that's a huge milestone for people. And that's to have thoughts go through our minds without having value judgments. So let's just kind of think about the mind in, kind of one of the annoying things our mind. So if you ever had, I used to call these sticky thoughts. So do you ever have thoughts that keep coming up and they keep repeating themselves, and you're just like, I don't want to think about this. I don't know why this keeps up. And what your mind is doing is it'll continue looking at that particular thought. But what it does is it brings up emotions, it unsettles us. And the reason for this is because those thoughts are part of our meaning making within our mind. Meaning that when we are in a position, let's say the very first stage, where we don't even recognize that our thoughts aren't us and aren't just reality, that we have the ability to slow our thoughts down, to change how our thoughts affect our experience, all of these other things. So we start off at that basic level, and then you get to this level where it's like, oh, I can observe my thoughts. And then the next important stage is, and the reason that I figured out why these sticky thoughts stick around is because they have not been reconciled within the mind as far as the way they fit with meaning that we're assigning to the world. They remain like a problem that we're trying to work on, but they're not really a problem. What it is that we have a mind that reacts to every thought, and that reaction is actually a value judgment. So just think about one of those sticky thoughts when you have that moment where you're just like, I don't want to have these thoughts. I don't want this thought bubble to be in my head. What's actually, so what's taking place there? The reason is because there's value judgments being made within that story, within that cluster of thoughts, and that's happening with all thoughts. So this is explaining the monkey mind and why people have a difficult time. They have ADHD. They have these things because their mind is constantly rearranging, and it really is, it's prejudice. It's just rearranging the prejudice to see where you're finding meaning. So one big monumental step in a person's path is when they can observe a thought without assigning a value judgment to it. And value judgments lead to meaning making. So let's use an example of this. Let's say that you drink 3 sodas a day. And if you drink any more than 3 sodas a day, then you're going to feel crappy the next day. So let's say you're at the end of the day and then all of a sudden you're just doing things, and then all of a sudden this thought goes through your head that I had 6 sodas today. Now, normally there would be a value judgment assigned to that. You'd be like, I'm going to feel like shit. This doesn't feel good. And, that's you. That's that cluster of thoughts, or that thought that comes through. And then you have the emotional or the sensational connection to it, an emotional response to the thought, and you start assigning meaning to that. You can, you could really beat yourself up, and it depends on what self-talk you have going on. So here's what the great thing is that it's the first time that you can observe a thought go through your mind without having a value judgment attached to it. So just use that example. Let's just say that you all of a sudden have that thought that you had 6 sodas today, but it's more like benign. You don't have a sensational reaction. You just allow the thought to cross through your mind and goes away. And then what ends up happening, if you continue to work on this skill, then you will start to get rid of that cluttered mind, because there will be thought patterns that will just start falling away because you're not giving them any emotional charge in order to keep them around. And so let's just move forward to like who you are. Well, if you came into this world and you stay, because there's adults that stay at stage 1. They think their thoughts are who they are. And then those are the people you can see just fiercely holding on to belief systems because they know they're right, because they've got a mind that's always rearranging prejudice so that it works out in their favor. That's just how that works. If we want to be ourselves, we're opening up perspective and being able to see the world from a different lens. And that lens is having a mind that isn't constantly working on value judgments. That perhaps you're you when you're showing up in the moment with whatever you believe in, and whatever's most important, because that's, it's kind of like having faith in yourself. It isn't. It is having faith in yourself. That if you're not doing this, if you don't have a mind that's rearranging prejudice and predigestion and all of these kind of things, like people might say, well, that's nihilistic, and that would take you into nothingness. And that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm going to say that that's when you find your meaning and your discovering of who you are in this reality. And that's a much different perspective. That you can have a mind that will make choices in the moment rather than, that's what people do, is they'll cling to an idea. Well, I'm going to make this choice because I've identified with this belief system, instead of figuring out like what you naturally and organically have, going on in your belief system. Is like, I don't work on a belief system anymore. I don't work on, what do I believe about this and what do I believe about that? I don't work on those kind of things. They're just a natural integrated part of my being. I'm not saying that beliefs don't exist. I just don't have a mind that's cluttered trying to make meaning out of things. I find meaning in the moment, and I discover the meaning of something in the moment. And that is when life becomes the gift of experiencing you. And I'll bet it's also when you are in cahoots with what is. Aha.